Hello, everybody. Your broskies in basketball are back for the first Friday slate of the season, and we are ready to build off of the green screens that we saw on Monday night. Recording live from somewhere, this is One and Done.
Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
It's time once again for everybody to come aboard that Green Screens Media train. Welcome to One and Done, powered by drroto.com. I am your humble host. My name is Jay Heinrich, the conductor of the aforementioned Green Screens Media train. Find me on X at Dr. William Cannon. Let's get right to two of the best in the business to do it, starting with El Capitan himself. He is the captain of the Green Screens Media ship and has been absolutely killing it on Prize Picks all week long. Follow him on X at MC Holland34, the OG Money Mike. That is Mr. Mike Holland. What it do, baby?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, fellas. I'm feeling good. You know, we put that Prize Pick out on Twitter and TikTok today, and if you played it, you would have doubled up. I had some other lineups in there that did a little bit better than 2x, so maybe 3x, maybe some 5x. So your boy's feeling good. Had a pretty good Tuesday slate. So, yeah, Monday slate. And so, yeah, I'm just fired up, man. We got a 12-gamer. These are some great matchups. None of this, who's playing for a mid-major. It's a lot of power conferences, so I'm excited.
No doubt about it. And, of course, last of the intros, but first in your heart. You can find him in those Twitter streets at Fantasy Nav. He is Eric the Blue and the Baron of Bread of Green Screens Media. That's Eric Romov. What's happening?
Man, what's happening is my bank account's feeling real flush a few days into the season. Right? Mike mentioned his prize pick prowess. Went 3 for 4 tonight. Ooh. Got some nice multipliers working, but also if you tuned into our first show, the first slate of the season, the Core Four that we gave out averaged 5x value on that Core Four. If you built around that Core Four, like Mike, like myself, like Jay, you saw plenty of green screens on that first slate, and that's exactly what we're looking to do again here tonight.
No doubt about it. Looking to build off of that solid Monday night opening slate, of course. Make sure if you're hanging out with us and we see you hanging out there in the old lobby on YouTube, or if you're watching us on Twitter or wherever you're finding us, make sure you drop us a comment, hit those like and subscribe buttons, do your part in that Green Screens Media universe, and tell all of your broskies and broskettes in basketball about your boys here on screen tonight. Make sure you get over to drroto.com. Check out all of Mike's work for college basketball. Check out everybody on screen dropping stuff in terms of fantasy football all week long over at drroto.com. Check out the great content going on over there. But tonight, wait a minute. How can I forget? Our guy at The Real Napier. Follow our guy Chris too on Twitter, who is dropping some bets and some good plays over the next couple of days. Make sure you are following us at Get Green Screens on Twitter or on X, and at One and Done CBB as well. But also make sure to get over to TikTok and follow at Get Green Screens, where you can find all of that same content, like those prize picks, like some bets coming up that our guy Chris is going to drop. All right, let's get to it. Ooh, like you said, Mike, 12 gamer and some actual matchups that you look at and you're like, oh yeah, I know college basketball season started earlier, but like now these games actually look like college basketball games. 12 gamer, like you said, 7 p.m. Eastern tip. So make sure you got your lineups in before then. Of course, we've got the $12 980 entrant 2K to first contest. Tomorrow's the big one that we will be throwing out a few lines into. Some solid matchups here. And all the KenPom scores, rankings, everything that we do was as of about 10 p.m. Central, so 11 p.m. on the East Coast. Some of these numbers may fluctuate a little bit, but it'll give you the gist of what we're talking about. Some big games here, some big totals. Let's get into what we like to call a quick overview of the slate. Mike, I'm going to start with you here. Quick overview of tomorrow's slate.
Yeah, pricing is still a little out of whack just due to the first day blowouts. So you're going to see a lot of kind of star or above average players that are priced in the mid tier, and a lot of guys that came off the bench and played 20 minutes that had really good games are going to be probably more expensive than they'll ever be this year. So, but it's a legit fun slate. It's going to take a lot of points to win this thing. There's some tough decisions at the top because there's no Edey out there. There's no Dickinson. There's no Baycott. There's no Jesse Edwards like that first slate on Monday. We got a couple of heavy hitters, so we're going to have to make some tough decisions up at the top. Eric, what are your thoughts on the slate?
Yeah, look, for stacking purposes, right? Like we've got a little bit more clarity in terms of how how we want to prioritize our builds. There are about 3 or 4 games in like the 130s that you can just straight up toss out, right? And in those 3 to 4 games, like there's a couple of value plays. There's a one-off here or there. When you get down into the lower mid tier, but all told, it's going to take a really big number to ship it, right? You look at that first 10K tournament on Monday. That was a 300 point score, 300.5 to ship the big prize, right? So I think we're looking at another high scoring slate for Friday.
You both mentioned it's going to take a really big number. Are we thinking like 300 is going to be what it takes? Maybe 310, like that kind of a night.
I think it's going to be in that area because we're going to talk about a lot of the low tier plays in these games that are high totals. So yeah, I think it's going to get up there about 300 for sure.
Big time scores. So we're going to make the right plays, and we're going to help you do that tonight or tomorrow if you're watching before the slate. Obviously, we are talking about the Friday slate. Let's get right into what we like to do, our showcase games. We're going to showcase 4 games and really take a deep dive into each one of those. While we're doing that, make sure you hop in those comments, say what's up, drop us the old fire emojis. Don't have any comments yet, but we see 8, 10, 12, a million of you, 40, however many you're watching right now. Get in there in those comments and say what's up. And make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons as
ask and you shall receive.
What do we got?
Jody popping in, and it sounds like Jody's stacked up with qualies just like Mike.
I have 12 qualies for Monday. I have $180.
It's just going to be Mike and Jody just trading blows in that tournament.
That's all right. $180 in qualies that I just can't do anything with until Monday. But whatever.
Not a bad place to be. Jody, thank you for coming back.
Pops in, little Corey over here.
There we go. Corey!
That Core Four from Monday was easy money. Yeah, it was. Yeah, the Core from the other day could have been, what was that, Wednesday slate? It almost got there, but you're not gonna win them all, right? Trying to build half the lineup for you. We're gonna have some really good days. We're gonna have some days that are like, all right, let's move on.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dive into some of these games right now in this showcase, as we like to call it. 4 pretty nice totals here. We got Arizona traveling to Duke, where the Dukies are 3-point favorites, 153-point total. Memphis 1-point underdogs on the road at Missouri with a silky smooth 163 point. That's some shivers, 163 point total there. Wake Forest traveling to Georgia, where the Bulldogs are 5-point favorites with a 156-point implied total. And then Clemson is a 6-point favorite on the road. Is that one what do we got there? Clemson at either way, Clemson is a 6-point favorite against Auburn, 146-point total. Let's hop into the Arizona Duke game. Yeah, that Clemson-Auburn game is at the old Harrah's Cherokee Center in North Carolina. That one threw me off a little bit there, of course. But yeah, Clemson a 6-point favorite there. Let's hop into the Arizona Duke matchup. 153-point total, like I said earlier, with Duke coming out ahead 78 to 75 and the implied totals here. But we are going to start with Arizona, and there's 75-point implied. Of course, early in the season with some of these numbers that we're going to talk about, but some of these will not change much in terms of their location. Arizona being 4th in offensive efficiency, 22nd in defensive efficiency, and 11th in tempo, according to KenPom's metrics. So, Mike, let me start with you, and let's start diving into the Wildcats. And you are already you already hinted at some lower price players in big time total matchups, and I feel like you're going to dive into at least one of those right now.
Yeah, and I want to dive into that bankroll that I just saw up on the graphic screen, but we'll get to that later. But hey, let's pull up Keelan Boswell. Keelan Boswell, first guy here off the board for me. Guard, 4,800. Yeah, 31 fantasy points in that first game. Now, look, a lot of these first games that we're talking about are 30, 40-point blowouts. So take it for what you will. But at least with Boswell, like, I just love his game. Like, he's able to kind of do it in all different kinds of categories. He's not a one-trick pony per se. So he's probably my favorite piece of really anybody on this roster. Starting lineup, we have last game was Boswell, Love, Larson, and then we have Keyshawn Johnson and Ballo. So, I'll take some Boswell. I'll pivot a little bit. I'm probably going to play 30 lineups after I scooped up some nice coin from Prize Picks tonight. So, Larson, I may pivot to him on 1 or 2 lineups out of my 30 just to get into this game. I think there's a real chance that this game could go under. Arizona likes to play fast, but they like to take their time, find a quality shot. So 2 pretty good defenses as well. But Larson, he's pretty contrarian, really just like a large field stacking option to kind of get away from the other 2 guards. So I'll go there once or twice. Omar Ballo, that's 7,800. The matchup's it's not great, but I mean, the guy just put up 26 fantasy points in 12 minutes. So I'll have some shares of him for sure. I don't know that I'm going to really touch anybody else on this roster. Like, you look at all the international bigs that that came over and are getting some run. Krivas, he's 6,100, 26 fantasy points, but I mean, all these backups, it's kind of overkill. I mean, there's a chance though that either Johnson or Ballo will get into foul trouble, so maybe one of them will see 25 minutes. This is a very tough matchup. I think Krivas, he's interesting just because he gets it done all over the board, kind of like Boswell, where he'll get rebounds. They'll give you some assists. He can even block a shot or 2. But at 6,100, it's just too expensive. So really for me, guys, I'm looking at some Boswell, maybe a pinch of Larson, and then I'll toss in Ballo here and there, maybe more in like 2-1 stacks in this matchup. Eric, what do you got on this lineup?
First of all, I got to say, personally, I'm shocked that Caleb Love's name did not come out of Mike Holland's mouth when discussing the Arizona Wildcats. I'm shocked, personally. I don't really know how to act. So I guess Eric gives the opportunity here for you to jump in on Mike's boy. But I thought Caleb Love was your boy, Mike.
Man, 2 times early in the show, Jay, ask and you shall receive. We'll go straight to Caleb Love. We'll round out the rest of this Wildcat starting lineup. Like Mike mentioned, Caleb Love certainly being in the rotation there. 5.9K is a pretty interesting price tag, right? Like, coming off a 25-point game, we know that he loves to chuck, right? There's very much so a reality where he can get 20 shots up in any given game. Obviously, coming from UNC, pretty familiar with this Duke roster that's coming over, right? So, all told, Caleb Love is a 7 to 8K type of player, and specifically, if Arizona wants to be successful, if they want to be competitive in this game, he's really got a ball out. So don't mind him at all at this 5.9K.
Yeah, but you're forgetting the Jay Jinx, which is 5,900. That price is sweet. But Jay has been talking so much mess about him, and he only did that in 21 minutes. What, like 25 fantasy points?
That's right.
Yeah, I'll have a little bit.
Is he going to be this cheap the rest of the year?
I'm not going to come out swinging like that, Jay, only for him to just fail. So I'll go with Boswell. I'll take my safe points and my upside.
All right. Who else you got, Eric?
So sticking with the starting lineup here, another key transfer, Key Johnson in this case, 4.9K is a pretty appealing price tag overall. He's coming off a 34 spot. A lot of that came from him racking up 6 stocks in that Morgan State game, right? So like you obviously can't project that out on a night in and night out basis, but he's kind of further down the pecking order offensively, right? He can do a lot for them on the defensive side. His ceiling, might be closer to I guess technically his ceiling's 34. We've seen it, right? We can now have the conversation of whether or not we've seen one of his better games of the year. I think more realistically, we're projecting him in that low to mid 20 range most nights. So, for me, he's probably someone that I'm gonna pass on, just given the matchup against these Duke bigs. And then, lastly, sticking with the kind of salary saver concept, we can go down to Jaden Bradley, 3.3K. He's probably going to be the first guy off the bench. He's one of those guards that, he's one of those guards where if there's early foul trouble, he can potentially present some considerable leverage on the field. You don't know that you need to go here, right? Like you're really piecing together kind of narrative town in order for him to pay off. And there are other ways to save salary. There are other ways to get different. If you want to have him in the player pool, that's fine. But I don't think he's really a priority, at least where we sit right now.
For the sake of our lineups, we better hope Caleb Love doesn't go 5 for 20. And it's whether or not we roster him a ton or not, but the pace of this game, if Arizona is going to be in this game, it's going to be because Caleb Love is making buckets and forcing Duke to get up and down the floor a little bit more. So he's not my favorite player, obviously, but from a DK's perspective,
we must have switched bodies.
I'm just saying, I mean, and I could see it happening. It's not like he's going to see Duke across the jersey and be like, oh, it's a big deal. Of course. No, why would he at this point, right? So, I mean, could you see him stepping up in a big game early in the season
he
like
put
this?
Up 36, man, and
it could be a huge type of night
or
for
you
Love.
Put up 13
if you're
we're just going home with 20% of my lineups.
We could be, but at 5,900, I'm willing to pay up for that. And Johnson, honestly, if I could get 25 out of him at 5x, I don't know if I would mind that at all, but we'll see how it goes. Jody, hopping back into the comments again. What's up, man? What do we got?
Ready to square off with Mike in the battle of the tickets punched, and then he's generally agreeing. A lot of good value on the slate, so a lot of different ways you can attack it.
You can be picky here. You can afford to be picky here and find some other value. Let's try to find some with the Duke Blue Devils, 7th in offensive efficiency, 20th in defensive efficiency. Quite a bit of a pace up here for the Blue Devils, 306th tempo on their own early in the season here, obviously. Let's start with Eric this time around here. And obviously, there's some big names here on this Duke side. Who sort of piques your interest and maybe some of these higher priced guys that we need to look at to fade possibly?
Yeah, I'll start with the kind of higher price guys. The thing that immediately jumps out to me is Jeremy Roach sitting at 7.5K just feels gross, right? Like he's coming off of a 21 spot. He's really more of that low 6K range type of player. So him sitting up here at 7.5, it's hard to click the button, right? Like he's not the priority in terms of the offensive side. He's just generally not for me. There are better spots out here, namely going all the way up on the price list here to Kyle Filipowski, 9.3K. It's coming off of 37 points, and he did that in 25 minutes, right? So now we're talking about a game that projects to be far more competitive, right? A 3-point game in this one. What's going to happen if he plays 30, 32, 35 minutes, right? Like the situation sets up so nicely for him in this game in particular, but also, zooming out a little bit, looking at the slate as a whole, there aren't that many top line guys that you want to prioritize. So Kyle Filipowski is going to be someone that I have a ton of interest in. And then we'll go down a little bit further to someone that we're expecting to make his debut on this slate. That's Mark Mitchell. Obviously didn't play the last game, coming in here at 7K flat. The news is going to be one to watch, right? But, as we sit tonight, it wouldn't hurt everyone else from a rebounding and stock upside with Filipowski. Right off the injury, you're probably taking a little bit more risk than you really should. But if nothing else, in a game that people are going to try to find ways to get into, he's a very unique way to do it if you're willing to roll the dice and to wait on that late injury news.
Mike, some big names in this Duke side still out there that Eric didn't cover. What do you got?
I like Tyrese Proctor. He's pretty good at basketball, and his price is like, $2,000 cheaper than Filipowski. Look, it's not an exciting debut, but, I mean, they didn't really need him. So I think in this matchup, getting paced up, we're going to really see him rack up rebounds, assists, steals to go along with the scoring pedigree. I'm probably going to be around 20 to 25%. I think this is kind of where he breaks out. So I'm expecting at least 30, which would be a floor in a type of game, and with upside of, 35, 40 fantasy points. So, yeah, I really like Proctor. The young guys like Jared McCain, he's at 6K, not much interest in him. Like Caleb Foster, he's 4,500. I mean, $1,500 cheaper. I'm just kind of stick to the main horses. Like, I like Filipowski as well. It's just tough because, like, you want a cheap guy to stack with one of Filipowski or Proctor. I don't know if I want to play both together because that's almost $17,000 in salary. So it's gonna be tough for them to both drop a monster game. So more using this as maybe a one-off situation, using an Arizona 2-1. Hopefully Arizona pulls off the upset. But outside of that, Ryan Young, like, he's just kind of meh. 5,400, he's too expensive. So I'm really just going to be using Filipowski, using Proctor, and then maybe sprinkling in. I don't know that I can even get there. It's really just might be those two guys for me.
I think you got to find a way to play these top guys in these matchups at the beginning of the season until further notice, right? Until you have a good reason not to. Like, Filipowski has to be on your radar. You find a way to make 9,300 work there. Roach is too expensive. I totally agree on that one. Proctor's such an interesting guy, but we'll see what's going on. We got Myron back in the comments.
Myron, what's up, man? What's he got? Is it me or CBBDFS miles better than NBA DFS? Yeah, man, I've been talking to some of my cousins about this. NBA DFS is insane. Like, the point totals nowadays are 230s, like 240s. It's like, man, you got to put up some ridiculous scores in the NBA, and guys sitting all the time. Like, you just, I don't know. Maybe we've been playing college for so long now that we're just so used to it. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that, guys?
You get these nights like this where you get in the NBA. You're not going to get as many matchups in one night that pique your interest. There'll be some good games and some good players playing, obviously, but Eric, you're not going to get like some of these matchups that we're talking about, like whether they're conventional rivals or not, they're just the name recognition, man.
It means more.
Yeah.
I mean, the quality of the matchup on any given night is obviously sparse in the NBA, right? And then you also have to consider things like load management and how prolific that's become in the game, right? Like, not only for how it impacts the quality of these matchups, like in the macro sense, but also you're having to sweat out news till the very last game tips off, right? And the entire slate can be changed with one or two pieces of news coming out. So it's definitely a grind on the NBA side for sure.
Myron, thanks for checking into the comments. We appreciate that. Myron and Jody, of course. Coming back to Jody one and done, Rees. Hopping in those comments. Correct. Yes, Jody.
Correct.
Of course.
And
your boy. Your boy's back.
We've got a breadhead. We've got a green screen aficionado, both thugging and hugging. Glad to be back. Ready to print some more.
There.
Yo.
Right there. Yeah.
He's
Cammy
been
Cam, our guy
dropping green screens
Cam.
on the Dr. Roto Discord, man. He's been having a good start to the year.
Yeah, good stuff, Cam. Thanks for checking in with us. C Thuggin, as we will be affectionately and forever referred to, and every once in a while, CT Huggin, whatever you want, man. It's if you need it, we're here for you. Your green screens crew is here for sure. But thanks for checking into those comments. We appreciate that. Let's move on to. Oh yes, I'm just looking at it on the screen and it's in shivers. 163-point total here, baby. Memphis traveling to Missouri. Those Tigers are a 1-point favorite with a 163-point total. I want to say it again. So with these implied totals both being over 80, guys, definitely going to want to find a way to get into this one. So Mike, your turn to go first here. A familiar name in on one and done fantasy circles here to start. Javon Quinterly.
Absolutely. So first thing you do is you click, you enter you reserve your lineup, and you go in and you're like, what's the highest total? And then you click the game Memphis and Missouri once you find it, and then you notice that there aren't that many guys. There's 2 guys that are really playable over 6.9. Really only one. And then everyone else in this total is 6.9 or lower. So it is going to be an absolute just fantasy point fest per dollar in this one. Starting with Javon Quinterly, 5,500. 5,500. I could not believe the price. 20 fantasy points in the first game. I don't care. Lock and loaded. He should see 30 minutes in this one. I mean, he's the captain of the ship for Memphis here. Implied 81-point total. He's got 40, maybe even more fantasy point upside. I got to be careful. I want to just hit that lock button on all 30 lineups, but I may have to, I get nervous. Just like I did with Lathan and Minix the other day. I didn't play them together on one single
right there
lineup.
on a dome.
If I literally switched them over, I would have won like $20,000. If I just didn't play Day Ames and played both of those guys. Anyway, that's a whole other story from past Monday. We're here for this slate. The Javon Quinterly, 5,500. I'm going to be using a ton of him. Jaquan Walton, he's the one guy I wish that wasn't this expensive. He's 7,600, 32 fantasy points in the last game. This dude's a baller. I'll be using him as a stacking option with Quinterly. I'm not going to go crazy with it. And I'll also maybe where I'm not playing some Quinterly, I'll probably throw him in there. But I think they tie well together. Some of these other forwards that are on here, like Nick Jourdain, 5,700, not really interested. Malcolm Dandridge, not really interested. They're just not playing enough minutes for me to get excited about. But the 2 guys that I'm most excited about are Quinterly and Walton. And I know Eric's boy has been cleared with the waiver. And I'm sure he wants to tell you guys about David Jones and a story that his little story that he's brought up every year since we started doing this.
Every single year. And I will continue to bring this up. And now, look, the tie binds even further because not only is David Jones the man that brought me so many green screens as a result of maybe one of the best late swaps in the history of CBBDFS, but also he's now the recipient of Jay's favorite late waiver, right? Jay's been tracking these down like a hound dog, and now we've got David Jones punching his ticket, officially able to suit up for these Memphis Tigers. Of course, he would be the one to get it. Of all the people, right? And you're right. I've been loving some David Jones since his DePaul days, playing for St. John's last year. Right now, he's over here with Memphis. We know the ceiling is outrageous, right? We've seen him put up, mid 40s, high 40s, even reach up and get close to 50. So, the downside is with that ceiling comes some floor. It can definitely be a bit of a roller coaster ride, as evidenced by his 22 spot in that first game of the season. That's not going to do it at 6.9K, but now he's in this big total, right? There's so many different ways that you can rotate around him for your Memphis exposure. So he will be in the pool for me. Another player that I like here on the Memphis side will stick with the incoming transfers. This time, Caleb Mills coming in from FSU, 7.9K. He is carrying that questionable tag because he's dealing with tendinitis. For me, 6.9K, not 100%. 7.9K, I should say, not 100%. Like that price tag is just a little bit too much, especially in the context of there being so many appealing Memphis pieces. And then we'll go all the way up here to close out the Tigers. Jordan Brown, 8.3K, their forward. Like, he's coming off the bench behind Dandridge. Like if he was more in that kind of low to mid 6K range, I think that would be someone that we would be real excited about firing up. But, for me, like the price doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We see him, we see him coming off this 24 spot, and it feels like there are better ways to attack this Memphis side than with either Mills or Brown.
No doubt. Second in tempo right now in the country is Memphis, and that's a number that we expect to stay. Don't know if they'll be second.
Jay, who are you stacking Quinterly with? Are you stacking him with Jones like Eric? Or because I know that's what Eric's going to do. Are you stacking him with Walton with me?
No.
You want to ride that roller coaster?
I can't. No, I don't think I could. I don't think I can do Jones. I'm sorry, man. I love playing Quinterly last season. Absolutely, we were all over Quinterly. Yeah. So much value all the time. No, man. 7,600 for Walton it's a lot, but I think that's probably what I'll look to. I might split that down the middle. How about that? Let me give you the non-answer answer there.
Jody's in the comments saying easy. He only averaged 8 points last year on a high-paced team. Go look at the last 10 games of the year when he was playing 32 minutes on that Alabama team and putting up 30 to 40 fantasy points every night. And we were begging for that. Just like Janai Broom. Why was Janai Broom not playing 40 minutes the other night? Auburn probably would have won. Oh, wait, he fouled out, so that's probably why.
Which we talked about that possible foul trouble going into that game. Well, let's play the other side of this one now with Missouri. Those Tigers and 97th in tempo, so they are. This game's going to be. There's a reason that why this total is 163. Okay. So let's start with Eric here from Missouri. How about some Tigers? Not the Go Tigers down in Baton Rouge, but the old Missouri Tigers. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so I am apparently the official spin that wheel correspondent of this season of the One and Done show, because there are a couple of mid-tier guards here for the Tigers that are pretty interesting. Sean East, 5K flat, right? One of these two guys is absolutely going to explode in this game. Obviously East, he brings that scoring ability that you love to see. In that last game, he put up 28 points. You're not mad at that at 5K. And if we see him get that playing time up, right, he could really be a player that is right on the cusp of being in Mike's core four, right? And then on the other side, Caleb Grill getting a little bit of salary relief here, going down to 4K flat. He's also coming off a pretty solid performance relative to his price tag, 26 points. Like the discount, this game should be pretty popular. So I'm gonna expect that we see a fair amount of both of these guys in the player pool and on opposing rosters. With Grill, he can knock down some threes, he can rebound, but that's really all that he's doing for you. So not quite as many outs as you're getting with East, but nonetheless, Grill is certainly too cheap, right? And East, you can make a defendable argument for that to be the case. These are guys that should be $1,000, $1,500 more than what they are. So we'll be rotating around these two in our run backs on the Missouri side. And then the last guy staying with some salary savers here, 4.4K.
No,
go over
don't
to
do
Aiden
it.
Shaw, much to Mike's chagrin. Look, 31 points in that last game. I'm expecting he is also going to draw a fair amount of ownership. The 7 stocks that led him there, is obviously, again, very hard to project on any given slate, but clearly he can reach into his locker and get there, right? So, I think you'd be much better off, projecting him out for 1.5 to 2 stocks. But I mean, the upside is unreal. The thing that gives me more concern about him than anything else is just how popular he's going to be, right? If you're banking on these, 99th percentile outcomes for the guy that's going to be super chalky, you're not going to have a good time on the slate.
I think there's something to be said about trying to play some of the more expensive guys in this game,
Right.
because so many people are going to be hopping all over this value, and it's important, like, depending on where you're spending your cash, you want to try to find value in a high scoring game. But when you're spinning the wheel here and you really don't know, I mean, you got to try to really pinpoint on some things that that make these players stand out. Mike, Eric stayed really low, really a lot of those in that,
Doing that
is
limbo.
what we consider our low tier, low. So I know there's some more expensive players here for the Tigers that we at least have to consider.
Yeah, I don't want to consider this guy, but just based on what I saw in game one, I guess I will consider Nick Honor, 5,500. Just buried me a few times last year. Hated playing him, but it seems like he's more aggressive. He just wouldn't shoot last year. If he's going to take 15 shots in this game, I am going to have about 20% of them because I know he can hand out assists. I know he's going to chip away a steal or two. I really like all three of these guards that start. It's Honor, East, and Grill. In the front court, you have Noah Carter. Jay kind of mentioned it. Like, he's kind of the expensive piece on the Missouri side. We obviously don't have Vanover in this matchup, which would have been a lot of fun to watch. But with Carter, he's 6,700, 28 fantasy points. Like, people are going to kind of see that and move away from it. But he's a guy that's shown some upside. I love stacking him with one of the guards, maybe even two of them, honestly, if you're playing, Quinterly and one of the forwards on the other side. Nothing crazy here, maybe a 5 to 10% just to get into this game. But by playing the most expensive guy in Missouri and a guy that has shown it before, I don't mind it at all. But like I said, I'm not going to go crazy with it. Jesus Calero Martin was in the starting lineup. I mean, he only played 10 minutes. Like, no thanks. Tamar Bates is actually the guy that's a little more appealing to me. Another guard, 25 fantasy points. This guy was at Indiana. He loves to shoot. Was a Texas commit at one time with Shaka Smart. Just had to throw that in there. But he's a great pivot option off of Grill or East if they get into foul trouble or just aren't playing very well. Like, we know Dennis Gates, he'll just pull guys, man. Like, he's not afraid to play the hot hand. So I'll have a share too. Like I said, 30 to 35 lineups. Like, I'm not gonna do anything more than one or two shares with him. So for me, yeah, I'm kind of with Eric. Like, I'm gonna play some East. I'm gonna play some Grill. I'll toss in some Honor. I'll stack with a few with Carter, and maybe shine some light on Tamar Bates on one lineup. So yeah, that's really all I got in this game. I'm excited for this one. I really hope it doesn't go under, otherwise I am screwed.
No, well, listen, I was about to say, like, I feel like both of these first two matchups just feel like under games to me, and I can't put my finger on exactly why, but I hope I'm wrong there. Because we're going to be heavily invested in a lot of these. Jody, hopping back in the comments here.
Get ready to head out.
Heading on the East. Yeah, I mean, one of those guys, right? One of those guards. And how can you really go wrong in terms of it? This might even be one to come back to. Make a bunch of plays and then just say, okay, try to come back somewhere between 4 and 5 and 5.5, and then however much money you have left over, shove that guy into your lineup. It's with these guards for Missouri, it's really what it might come down to. One of them's going off. At least one of them is going to go off. So.
At least.
At least. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight or tomorrow. Whenever you're watching, we're live right now. It's Tuesday morning after midnight on the East Coast. So if you're hanging out with us, and it is one and done after dark out there, hanging out with us on the West Coast, a little 9:12, 9:15, whatever action there on Thursday night. However, we are talking about the Friday slate, the second big slate for us of this season. Make sure if you're hanging out with us on YouTube, hop in that live chat. Just say what's up. If you've been on fire, like Mike has been in those prize picks, drop the fire emoji in the chat right there. Just do it. There you go. Both hands, fire emojis. Spit them up, Mike. Come on, Mike. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
thank you, Mike.
buddy.
There we go. We got it. Fire in the chat. Just say what's up. But
I think Jody's back in the comments. Asking about Tanji, and that's been a question. And that's something to monitor because that could blow this thing up. He's not hurt, I don't think. I don't know if he was suspended. He didn't play. He's 6,600. He's a Colorado State transfer. Was the starter there. We thought he was going to be in the starting lineup, and then he wasn't. So Yeah, I'm going to great point, Jody. Glad you brought this up because if he's in the starting lineup, one of these guys is not going to go off that we think is going to go off because the playing time is just not going to be there. But the starting lineup comes out again. It's the same five. I'm not too worried about him coming off the bench. I don't think there's any way he comes off the bench. They just dust him off in this Memphis game after not playing him in the first game of the year. So I don't know what's going on there. It's a weird situation. Maybe he's apparently he's healthy. He's just not in the rotation right now. That's how it goes with Dennis Gates. That's how he got the job.
Good stuff there from Jody. Hopping in the comments. If you got anything to add, make sure you do the same. 11 of you watching live on YouTube right now. What's up? Hanging out with your broskies in basketball. What it do, baby? Appreciate y'all. Tell the broskies and broskets in your life about it. Hit those like and subscribe buttons. Hop in. If you're watching after the fact, drop a line in those comments too. There you go, flashing across the screen there. I'm a very visual person, so seeing like and subscribe, drop it. That's for me. I love that stuff. So if you see that and you want to do that, make sure you do it. Just say what's up in the chat. We'd love to see that and put it up on the screen, of course. All right. Moving along with our showcase games here. Wake Forest traveling to Georgia. I had to find a way to get some sort of song in tonight because there's no West Virginia. So we got Georgia hosting Wake Forest. The Bulldogs are 5-point favorites with a 156-point total. And this is a game that I feel like definitely has the potential to get there and maybe more. Georgia obviously favored, come out here with a victory. But we're going to start with Wake Forest, who is, what did I say, 5 earlier? Maybe it was 4. Maybe they're 4-point dogs. Either way, heading into this one here. Wake Forest, 46 offensive efficiency, 104th defensive, and 52nd in tempo. Love all of those numbers. Going to start with Mike here on this one. Oh, looking at the top of this one, man, this is
that's our boy.
I just get heart. I just did the heart. Oh, Heartburn Hildreth. It's like
yes. I remember when he was so good at 4 and 5K, and then we jumped on, and he just completely wrecked us for 2 weeks.
Killed us for 2 weeks straight.
Here we are at 8,700 after a 53 spot in game 1. What could go wrong? A lot, really. That's a ceiling game. I might have 1 or 2 shares. I would rather get to some other guys. And one of my favorite plays of the night, Hunter Salas, the old Gonzaga transfer, 4,200, coming off a 24 spot in the first game. This is the guy, came over to get more usage. Guess what? 14 shots. He has the defensive pedigree. Didn't really have to flash that. He is going to chip away some steals. He'll get some blocks. The price, just lock button for me, man. Just lock button. What could go wrong, man? This is like a team of what could go wrong, honestly. Some of the other guys kind of looking at here,
my kind of guys.
Some other guys here like Marion, Fredrickson, 3,400, 4,500. I don't know. They really only played 7 guys. Monsanto's out right now, dealing with the injury. So, kind of condensed this lineup. Even not really playing that many guys. So I'm not going to go to either one of those 2 guys. I'm really looking at Salas. And just because there's not that many pay-up options, I guess I'll toss a Hildreth in case he goes nuclear for 44, which is entirely plausible. He shoots a lot. He can rack up rebounds and assists from the guard position. But like you said, heartbreak hotel there, Jay. Eric, man, what do you think about we talked about Kevin Miller a lot this offseason, man. I know your boy Andrew Carr's there as well. I know you like him a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to like here. I'll start with Miller coming in. For those of you that watched our betting preview, part of the reason why I was throwing a dart at Wake Forest winning this league was because of how successful and how impactful some of these transfer guards have been for this program historically. And now we're looking at Kevin Miller. 7.1K. He's a fantastic pivot off of Hildreth. Guy that came in and took 13 shots, right? We'll see him get a little bit more effective, see that ball go through the hoop a little bit more. He didn't have an assist either, which is just super abnormal for him, right? there are a lot of things about this 26-point game that don't feel like are in alignment with what we can expect from Kevin Miller. If everything's clicking, like he's a player that certainly has like 35, maybe even 40-point upside. So getting some leverage with Kevin Miller is a fantastic way to get into this Wake side. And then you mentioned Andrew Carr, 7.7K, like much like Hildreth, absolutely exploded in that first game, 44 spot, with no Monsanto right now. Like he is the option out of the wings and forwards. He is clearly the offensive priority. Don't mind it, right? But I also think that we're going to see people chase that first game's performance. So might be a little bit chalky, not going to go crazy here. If we want to talk about a few more names, like Marsh down here at 3.6K, he's someone that we should at least, we should consider, right? Like UGA, they do play a massive man in the middle, right? So Marsh has shown last year that he can put up 15 to 18 points. He might get a little bit more run based on the matchup. So he's a sneaky option in a game stack specifically. But for me, I really like the idea of using Kevin Miller the most as a way to not only get some upside, but also to get some leverage off of the more popular plays in this game.
I think you're right about people chasing Carr and chasing that upside here, but I also think that I'm not shocked if he scores 40 fantasy points. Like
I'm not either. Like I would not be shocked at that at all.
So I mean, he's got to be on the table here. And how do you spell Hildreth? ROLAIDS is how you spell Hildreth. 8,700, man. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to do it, but
hey, look, Jody's on cue with me here, man. Salas, my favorite play, 4,500 and below. He says we're going to the king of the bracket that I missed out on last year, unfortunately, and made it the year before. All right, I guess I'm locking him in onto every single lineup, so I'll be done. What time is this game? I'll be done at what time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. I'll be done around 7:30 when he's in foul trouble.
Well, that's just the first team in this matchup here, this high-scoring projected matchup. Let's go now to those Georgia Bulldogs, 40th in tempo. Both of these teams obviously are going to get up and down a little bit. Going to start with – let's switch it up. Let's start with Eric this time. I don't know, man. Like I know you like to dip down in some of the lower prices a lot. And Georgia doesn't necessarily well, Georgia doesn't necessarily have that, when you think of their price king, 7,800, honestly, in a game with this total seems to be like a low number. I don't know, man. What do you think?
Yeah, the player in question is Noah Thomason, 7.8K. Got the start in that last game and kind of peed down his leg, right? 12 fantasy points, not the way that he wanted to start off his career with Georgia. My hope, if nothing else, is that people are going to, try to fade this poor start and he draws no ownership, because I'm super interested in him, right? Like looking at his stats, he played 29 minutes in that game, chucked up 9 shots, right? Like the opportunity is absolutely there. It's just, now he's got this softer matchup. If he's going to be overlooked, he's someone that I'm definitely interested in sliding down a little bit more. There are a couple of guys that are at least, worthy of discussion. You got the Mary Jr. here, 4.6K. He was a top recruit for them. He played well in the opener. He got 23 minutes. You want to see a bit more usage out of him, right? Like he's out there a lot, but the ball isn't exactly going through him as much as you would like to see. He's fine as like a rotational kind of player pool guy, but not a huge priority. And then looking a little bit further down the price list here, save $100. You can go to Abdur Rahim here, 4.5K. I mean, he got all the run, right? 32 minutes, very much so looked like he was aggressive, attacking the hoop, right? last year he was a bit more of a 3-point shooter. Now, he's getting to the basket. He's going towards the rim, right? Like, he's someone that I'm going to have a ton of shares of. And, really it's going to be kind of a difficult spot to figure out how I balance my exposure to the Georgia guards, because across Abdur Rahim and across Thomason, these are two of some of my favorite plays on the board for tomorrow's slate.
Going to be easy to find a stack here, I think, that we like. Mike, who are you looking at here? Of course, Eric did end up dipping down in the price.
Of course,
like we love him when he does.
He likes to leave 4,000 salary to say he won the tournament. I mean, these other guys are okay. I mean, I don't know, nothing too exciting. Like, I'm kind of with him. Like, it's weird, right? Like, you look at the Wake side, and it's like, there's Cameron Hildreth, and 3K 3,500 less. There's Hunter Salas, and then there's Noah Thomason 7,800, and then there's Abdur Rahim at 4,500. So, yeah, we're gonna have to make some tough decisions. RJ Melendez. I don't know, guys. How many times does this guy just completely burn us? I mean, he had 18 fantasy points. Like, I don't mind the matchup. Like, he's a guy that's either just going to score 28 fantasy points or he'll have 7. So I'm going to have a few shares. Those lineups might end up being burnt to the ground, or I may have a shot to win it all. Russell Shane was that big man you were talking about in the middle, 7,300. Just not at this price tag. Doesn't play enough minutes. Justin Hill, meh. Jalen Deloach, kind of interesting. Like, I figured he was going to be a bigger piece of this puzzle, and he may be working his way back from the injury. He's still 6,800. I don't think he's playable right now, but there could be a point down the line where he drops into like the 5K range, and we're just going to hit the jackpot with him once he gets like 25, 30 minutes. So, I'm kind of sticking with the heavy hitters here, man. Like, I love, Abdur Rahim, Thomason, if he's not going to be owned. And then, I'll have some shares of DeMary, but really liking the Wake side, guys.
A lot to like. I think we can attack this in a lot of different ways. It's like Jody, our guy Jody, attacking that live chat. No one to stop Carr. I mean,
it's gonna be a long day.
Yeah, it's somebody, man. Like, there's gonna be a lot of fantasy points out there, boys. We should capture all of them on one lineup.
Yeah, no kidding. Thanks for Jody. Super active tonight in the old chat. Appreciate that so much. One more game here in our old showcase. Some big time totals in this one. This is the one earlier that I forgot originally. It's being played in the Harris Cherokee Center in North Carolina. This is Clemson as 6-point favorites against UAB. Got Clemson 76-70, the implied total here. Let's start with Clemson. I've been starting with the old underdog a lot tonight. Let's start with the favorite now. Eric, a whole lot to like with this point total, about 145, 146 points, depending on where you're looking. Not the tempo from Clemson right away that we've seen from some of these other teams, but, still got to, with this sort of total, you still got to take a look at a lot of these guys.
Yeah, there's a lot to like here, and I'll start off with Joe Girard. I don't know who he pissed off at DraftKings, but he's sitting down here at 4.7K for no reason, right? I mean, I guess practically speaking, there's probably a reason because he's coming off of a 14 spot, but I mean, he battled an ankle injury during camp. He played 26 minutes in that blowout in the first game. He only shot 1 for 5, right? Like, he really doesn't have to do a whole lot to pay this off, and we know what the ceiling is. So again, like, has been kind of my drumbeat for the whole show. I'm hoping that this poor first game performance is going to draw attention away from Girard, because definitely like getting to him on this Friday slate. And then because I'm getting made fun of as being a cheap, I'm going to go all the way up to PJ Hall. 8.8K. Like, this is probably the safest piece on the Clemson side. The price isn't amazing, right? Like, he's someone that, can get there, but probably is going to have to get a little bit closer to his ceiling in order to pay this off, right? Like, the upside is there specifically because of the matchup, right? Like, he can reach up and get to 40 or 45, but he feels like a bit more of a cash play, right? So, someone to consider, but everything's going to have to go right for him to really reach that ceiling and break the tournament roster.
Do either one of you actually feel like PJ Hawk could get 50 fantasy points?
If he ever played like 34 minutes, but
if he ever got the run, right?
What did he put up last game? How many minutes did he
20 minutes.
So ridiculous. Like, this is a story last year. He just doesn't play that many minutes. Maybe he'll play 30, 32. If he ever does.
Because if he plays 32 minutes, then we could talk about 50 and not even think twice about it.
He's Janai Broom for like in the ACC. Like, it's like, come on, one time. Like,
give him some run.
One time.
What else for the Tigers, Mike?
Not much, man. Like, I'm gonna chase after Chase Hunter. 6,800, 17 fantasy points. I think he's the second best player on this on the team. I know he can put up 30, 35. So if there's no ownership there, especially because Gerard is right at 4,700. Yeah, so a lot of the same story with a lot of these games, man. These other guys, not much interest, to be honest with you. Like Shiflin, too expensive. Wiggins, not with Clark working his way back. Clark's too expensive. Hemingway, I guess if you want to throw a dart in this game, 3,600. You want to play like a 3-1 stack on the Clemson side, like, okay. Nothing else really excites me, man. I'm more excited to talk about the other side, Jay.
Yeah, let's go right into UAB here. Man, talk about that. There's so much value to be found in these big total matchups here. Where should we start, Mike? With UAB.
Oh, man, the name. I know he's got to make your all name. Tony has done it again. All right, let me talk to you. 3,700. Look, you get it. 17 fantasy points, like whatever. He played 30 minutes. He was actually a pretty solid player for them last year. Watched him in a few games. He didn't shoot well in this last game. He's going to be one of my core punt like rotation options. That's really hard to say. But I really like his game. He's in the starting lineup. He's going to play 30 minutes. Like, there's projected to score 70 fantasy points. I get it. Eric Gaines is there at 6,900. We have to spend our cash at some point. We can't just have everyone at under 4,500. So Eric Gaines at 6,900, yes. We know he's a stud. I mean, come on, like 30 fantasy points, like that's 4x at this price. And, he played 38 minutes last game. He only shot 6 for 18. What happens if he makes, 4 or 5 more shots? So another kind of like core rotation piece for me in the mid-tier that I'll be using. They got this forward, man. Yaxa Lindeborg, 3,800. He scored 17 fantasy points now. Granted, this was an overtime game, so some of these, fantasy lines and minutes are going to be a little inflated. But he put up 17 fantasy points and didn't make a field goal. He was 0 for 6. So, I'll take a shot on like a 2-1 stacking option with him. Christian Coleman at 4,800. He's another, front court piece for them. He played 29 minutes in the overtime game. I just think I'll go to maybe the cheaper option right there. So, Eric, man, like, talk to me. I know that, our guy Javian Davis getting more run this year, man. What are your thoughts on him at 6K? He went nuclear last game.
He absolutely did go nuclear. And of the remaining Blazers on the board, he's probably the one that I'm most interested in, right? He's coming off that 49 spot. But like you've mentioned a couple times here, this was an overtime game, right? So we have to take that with a bit of a grain of salt. But, for Davis in particular, like, he's played big time basketball before. He played at Mississippi State a few years ago, and now for UAB, like this is his front court, right? So he's definitely someone that I'm going to be rotating in. He's a pretty clear priority among Blazers. Looking at some of the other names that you haven't touched on here, no one really jumps out and really screams at you, right? Like Vasquez, 3.3K. He started, so that's not nothing, but he only played 17 minutes, right? So didn't get a ton of run, not exactly interested, for my guard exposure, probably looking more towards Tony and towards Gaines. I mean, if you want to throw a dart, you can go all the way down to the min price here with Ephraim Johnson, 3K flat. I mean, he put up 7 points in that first game, but he played 30 minutes. So, you like a guy at this price tag that's going to be out there that much for sure. In those 30 minutes, only shot 1 for 6, right? So bare minimum guy, very much so a dart throw. But if he plays 24 plus minutes again and we see him go 2 for 6, 3 for 6, right? Like he's got a real path to paying off $3K.
How do you play 30 minutes and get 7 fantasy points?
I mean, it's almost like he was trying, right? Like you'd have to go out of your way to only put up that fantasy production in 30 minutes. But I guess the thing with Johnson in particular is like where we sit right now, the slate doesn't feel like one where we have to go out of our way to get salary relief, right? So it might just be a little too cute in my book.
You call me your friend, but you only want
yes.
But you only want my gifts, and I'll never see you if I had no loot. If you want to play Tony, sorry, I got so excited about doing that. I got my frog in my throat. Play Tony a little bit, mix him in, and you will not have to worry about having no loot. I promise you that much.
Jerry, all right, he's leaving $10K on the table with Eric.
Right. Me and you, Jody.
It's funny because it's true.
Clever
lineups.
Those are the 4 showcase games. If there's anything else we haven't covered yet, make sure you hop in that live chat and let us know about it. We're not done yet. Of course not.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to run through some tiers here, some high tier and mid tier and low tier players. And we're each going to give you 1 play and 1 fade in each tier, I should say. So let's start with the high tier, which of course is like 7.5K and above for us. So Mike, we'll start with you here. Give us 1 play and 1 fade.
Yeah, I'll go with Sean Padula. Virginia Tech, 7,500. He just put up a 41 spot. He's primed for a big year. It's his team at South Carolina. He's projecting big time all over the place. He can shoot threes, hand out dimes. This is going to be a close game, so I'm expecting him to show out. The guy I'm fading is the Price King, Deron Holmes. I was actually surprised to see him as the Price King in this ugly matchup. 130-point total. Like, no thanks. He put up 37 in the first game. No thanks. Northwestern, they just drag bigs down. So not for me, especially when you have like Filipowski and Hall for much cheaper. So, Eric, where are you going for your play and fade in this high tier?
I'll start with my play, and that is Reese Beekman, right at the cutoff, 7.5K. He's coming off of a 40 spot. Look, I mean, you're not going to find me, shirking or shrugging my shoulders at a 40 burger to open the season. And now he gets Florida, right? Like Coach Golden likes to push the pace a bit. Virginia is relatively slow in tempo. They're 242nd, so they're getting paced up. And he's a rock solid defensive player, right? So you can contribute on both ends of the court. And then for my fade, I mean, we're going up to someone that is right near the top in terms of the price list. Wade Taylor, 9K flat. Like he's just too expensive on the road at Ohio State, right? Like there are a ton of way more appealing guard options. So I don't see a build where I actually get all the way up and click his name. Jay, round us out here. Your high tier 1 play and 1 fade.
Yeah, I'm playing Jaden Ledee at 7.8K, 46 burger last time out at BYU. And we've been 34 minutes. If Ledee sees 34 minutes, that's not going to happen every night. We know it's not going to happen. But
if he plays 35 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. He's not going to play 34 minutes because he might play 36. We're at least hoping. So this is going to be a tight game. So he's going to have to be out there. And with those kind of minutes, it's going to be hard to ignore. I am going to fade Dante Scott. All right, listen. Like, it's not that I don't necessarily like Scott as a player, but at 7,700, I just don't know if I could get there when he's not even – I think it's safe to say he's not even one of the top 3 options for the Terrapins. The total isn't great in that game either. I'm fading Scott. Myron hopping back in the comments. Of course.
Hilarious. Beekman, UVA player with the ceiling of 40. Weird to say, right? But Beekman's that guy because he contributes all across the board. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. Like, threes. Yeah, he's a total package, man. They're playing a little bit faster. Maybe it's just the first game of the year, 242nd. We're used to seeing them in the 350s.
Right? That's like breakneck pace for them.
Yeah.
Myron, you're right. And you kind of have to be that kind of player in order to, in that Virginia system, to have a 40-point ceiling like that, is to do a little bit of everything, right? And Beekman is definitely that guy. Let's jump down to the old mid tier, 5K all the way up to 7.4K. Mike, give me a play and a fade in this tier.
I will play Wooga Poplar, the guard from Miami, 6,600. Dropped a 30 spot in the first game. He's Mr. Everything. We heard he had a big offseason. Look, Pack is up there at like 7,400. I like coming down because Pack really relies on shooting. So if I can get a guy that's going to contribute across the board, I'll take it. UCF is a soft matchup. There's a really nice implied total there for Miami. I got to have some exposures to some Miami guys as rotational pieces. Amir, I'll throw in a Pack every now and then, but I'm going to have some Poplar for sure. And then if I have to pay up at guard, I don't mind Cleveland. But yeah, in this mid tier, definitely Wooga Poplar. Fading Brooks Barnheiser. We have heard all offseason. We talked about it offseason. This guy is going to be the X factor for Northwestern. The reason why they're going to get back into the dance, not only because the Big Ten gets 12 teams in, but because he's a solid player. He's 7,300. He's playing Dayton. There's a 130-point total. I don't think he's dropping 50 fantasy points against Dayton. If he does, and he's and if you guys roster him, I'll just go ahead and I'll move on. I got those satellite tickets for next Monday. So he played 38 minutes in that last game, so maybe I'm the crazy one. But yeah, I'm fading Barnheiser. Eric, what you got, man?
Man, I love that Poplar call. This was a guy that we've just been waiting to break through, and a rotational piece in Miami that really looks like he's taking that step forward. Probably going to be tailing you on that one. For a different tech, I'm gonna go over to Dalton Connect. The offensive savior, the prince that was promised for Tennessee. He's coming in off a down game, 22 points, right? But he put up that fantasy performance in just 22 minutes, right? It was a blowout against Tennessee Tech. And even in that game, there's opportunity for him to get more efficient. He can certainly do better than 2 for 6 from 3. And when he does, he's got the upside to pay off that 7K price tag. This game in particular projected to stay much, much closer, right? So wouldn't be surprised at all to see him push for 30, 32 minutes. And then for my fade, going to go to Zed Key, 6.5K. Look, the 27 points that he put up in that first game, that's really about the ceiling for him. Now he gets a Texas A&M team that is very tough on bigs. I don't see him reaching back up to, even the high 20s or low 30s again. I would project that he'd even struggle to get to 27, 28 minutes even. It feels like this is going to be a long day in the office for Zed Key. So Jay, taking a look at the rest of these mid-tier options, where are you going for your play?
If Connect is going to score like we think he's going to score, how hard is it going to be to beat Tennessee in March?
Oh my God. So
I'm
hard,
very,
especially with gaming
very,
too. Oh man.
Yeah, and we talked about that. We've talked about that a couple of times now, how we focus so much on Connect.
Yeah.
He's not the only guy that's come in that puts the ball in the bucket, So this is big time stuff there. So I like the play there. I'm gonna go Roddy Gale is my play in this tier, 5,100, 32 spot against the Aggies last time out. We talked about him a lot this offseason, obviously. A lot more opportunity for him as a go-to option for the Buckeyes. He's obviously playing the Aggies, in this slate here. But he had 32 points in the first game of the season, as evidence that he is a go-to option now for the Buckeyes. And again, another one that'll stay close and has the ability to chip in, like we talked about earlier, to sort of, if you're going to get to these totals that we need, those 5X and 6X to really, really cash, you got to have some players that do a little bit of everything, and Gale does just that at a very sound price. I'm going to fade Chucky Hepburn from Wisconsin going up against Tennessee. had 36 fantasy points last time out, but obviously we talk about Tennessee is connecting the offense and stuff, but the defense did not go anywhere. Super tough matchup for Hepburn. I would rather pay for Gaines, Miller. I honestly connect at 7K. That's for cheaper than Hepburn. I would rather go to Connect here than Hepburn, honestly. But that's who I am fading in this tier. One more tier here, the low tier, 5K and below is basically what we're talking here. Mike, who do you got?
Yeah, Scotty Middleton, Ohio State, another guy, young player, 4,500. Going against Texas A&M should be a tight game. Probably should go with McNeely playing against Florida from Virginia, but I'll go with Middleton. And he's like 28 minutes. Saw him grab some boards, like didn't get any stocks, so maybe have some upside there. Maybe from 5 to 10%. We talked a lot about these plays in the low tier, so there's not many left. So I may rotate him in maybe 1 out of every 10. I'm fading Noah Waterman. This is a tough matchup against San Diego State. He's not going to play more than 25 minutes, so. I don't know, just not for me. Like, I'm not going to chase any of these BYU guys against San Diego State. So a lot of these guys are pumped up because of that blowout win. So Eric, what do you got down here?
Yeah, I'll go to Lynn Kidd for my play. 4.3K. The Virginia Tech forward. He's slotted in as the starting big man and as the priority option in that front court. We talked about him a lot over the course of the offseason, and they're going to use him in a lot of different ways, right? So like he should be closer to high 20s minutes in this fairly tight game, right? So he saw 22 in that first game. That's where he turned in a 29 spot, almost 30, right? So gets a little bit more run. Definitely like how this one shapes up for him to just blow past his value at 4.3K. And then for my fade, I'm going over to Richie Saunders. A lot of what you mentioned in your reference earlier, right? Like these BYU guys are just kind of in a rough spot. It's a bad matchup. They blew out that first opponent by 40, so everyone's stats are just completely pumped up. And this is your reminder, your obligatory PSA. Don't game log watch, right? Like there's so much more to this game than just the stats that land in that stat sheet. And I think BYU on this slate in general is a pretty clear example of that. So Jay, finish out the low tier for us.
Yeah, but it's so fun to do. Those game logs look so juicy. Like, don't ruin this for me, man. Okay? Like, both of you guys.
Jay's going to play Hildreth.
Yeah.
We're doing a thing.
Oh, my God. Oh, I can already feel my chest tightening up just talking about Hildreth like that. Okay. Both of y'all fading BYU guys. I can't say that I blame you at all. I'm not going to mess with anything in that game. But I'll go Nate Santos. I think we talked about him earlier a little bit. But 33 minutes is the important number for me here. Maybe we didn't talk about Santos earlier. But either way, 4,100 here for the Flyers. 33 minutes last year. He has to absolutely be in your player pool for these forwards. Tough matchup, maybe, against Northwestern, but I'll take a few shots. And then Tyler Nickel, who has that starting pitcher as a relief pitcher eligibility. He's really a forward. If you want to slot him into one of your guard spots here, I get it. 4,400. I won't be, though. 25 points, fantasy points, last game out, playing against South Carolina tomorrow. Came off the bench, and even those 25 fantasy points feels inflated to me after the blowout in the first game there for Virginia Tech. And, it's too tough of a matchup for me. I don't see him. That's probably a ceiling game for Nickel, I would say for sure. So playing Santos, fading Nickel. I get it if you want to box score watch, like we told you not to do game log watch or whatever with Nickel. It's appetizing to throw something like that in there and feel good about 5x, but it might be a tough outcome for Nickel tonight. All right, it's that time. Make sure you hop in the live chat, those comments, whatever you need to do now that we've gotten through our tiers of plays and fades. But as we are wont to do here on One and Done. Oh, we got Myron. Did Myron hop back in there?
Man, Myron's he's fringing on the gimmick. He's given Lynn Kidd at least one roster spot because of his status on the all-world name team. Jay, you think he's worthy of consideration, Lynn Kidd?
I got to say, anybody with the name Jay, or if it was Heinrich or what, you got immediately 25% of my lineups. So if you find it, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but I can totally understand sharing the name with you there or not, Myron. I think you definitely have to consider it for sure. All right, let's move on now to the old Core Four. Oh, Core Four time. There's Corey sticking around late night with us, hanging around. What's he doing? Go to bed.
It's a school night, Corey.
Go to bed. Don't you have 17 kids to chase after or something like that? Get out of here, man. No, we're just kidding, Corey. Thanks for hopping in those comments. The Core Four time, baby. And tonight, I'm going to start with Javon Quinterly. Yes, Quinterly. We loved him last year, and at 5,500, 5.5K. How do you not love Quinterly here? Hunter Salas, of course, one of Mike's favorites. We're going to chunk him right into one of those guard spots at 4.2K. My goodness, this feels like a steal, an absolute theft with Salas. He may be one of those. What ownership-wise, what do you think? 30?
Oof. I mean, yeah, it's going to be up there, probably close to 30. I would think, maybe, yeah.
Definitely.
There's just so many cheap guards, like.
Yeah,
maybe not. So we'll see.
Maybe not. But I think he's got to be in your core to start building lineups around. Sean Padula for Virginia Tech at 7.5K. I'm willing to spend up. We're filling out the guards for you here. You focus on the old big man in the land of the big man, of course, as they like to say. And here's one for you, Kyle Filipowski, spending up for the core. You knew I was going to spend a little bit. I don't like to just live in those Eric Romoff low tier. You know I was going to spend up here.
Come on, leave 10K.
No. You and Jody can leave 10K. I'm spending up for Kyle Filipowski.
You and me, Jody.
There we go. Yeah,
we ride together.
All right, there's the Core Four, but also one of those Missouri guards, right? I don't know which one. Pick one. Spin the wheel. Like we say, throw a dart, spin the wheel, flip 3 coins, 2 heads and a tail, take east. You know, like we mentioned earlier, whatever you want to do. But, man, there's just build everything around some of these guys. Who did we put in there? East?
We got East in there, leaving you 6.1K.
Man.
Swap them out for Grill. You're cooking with 6.5K. A lot of flexibility with what you do with those remaining 3 spots.
That's good stuff there. Grill. Look at you cooking. I like it.
We're doing a thing.
It's not just a bunch of pretty hair and a hat rack right there for our guy, Eric the Blue. Good stuff there. There's the Core Four. Quinterly, Salas, Padula, and Filipowski on the best roster in the country, Duke Blue Devils. It's time now, before we close out the show, El Capitan is going to lead off our best bets of the night. What are you feeling?
Yeah,
Mike?
So I didn't know that Northern Arizona was going to have their best player out when I called out the last best bet, and then his backup was actually out too, so they got blown out. But I'm going to go with Oakland plus 23.5 against Illinois. Oakland just played Ohio State really tough. We talked about Trey Townsend. He was one of our spotlight guys from the mid-major conferences. Very tough player. So they're just a tough team in general, so I like that. I think Miami covers the -9 over UCF. This Miami team is dangerous. I still feel like UCF has the horses to stick with them. So, Eric, you got a couple of bets for us?
I do. I'm going to drive you all into madness by betting the Fighting Rick Barnes, Tennessee. They're laying 1.5 at Wisconsin, right? Like I've already kind of made the case for Dalton Connect going off, right? Like, you know, that offensive piece, like when it clicks, it's going to make Tennessee a real problem, right? That defense is still as stout as they come, probably too much for the Badgers to overcome as it is. And you get any of these offensive guys going, and I think Tennessee is going to win this one going away. And then I'll close out with one that's a little bit more juicy. Memphis on the money line, plus 130 at Missouri. Like, for me, there's a pretty clear talent discrepancy looking at these two rosters, even though Memphis is on the road. Quinterly, Jordan Brown, even David Jones, like, any of these guys have a big game, and I think Memphis can really, really add to your bankroll with that nice plus 130 price.
Isn't this just a 1-point line? Like, and you're getting Memphis money line at plus 130. Like, yeah. I think you got to smash it. Like, I love it in this spot. I really, really do. So, the best bets of the night from two of the best in the business. Mike taking Oakland plus 23.5 against Illinois, and Miami to cover those 9 points against UCF. Eric the Blue taking Tennessee to run away from Wisconsin, in his words, covering that 1.5 with our guy Connect. And then love the Memphis money line there at plus 130, traveling to Missouri. Shout out to everybody that stuck around with us. Our guy Corey, of course, hanging out all night, school night, whatever, he's there. We appreciate all y'all hanging out with us. One and done after dark. Our Myron, Jody, Corey, C Thuggin, our guy Cam jumping in. C Thuggin, CT hugging, whatever you got to do. Gentlemen, this is going to be a great slate tomorrow. Anything to close us out real quick before we get out of here?
Yeah, I got to say, we mentioned play the Missouri guy. So just because the core that we deliver, like, that doesn't mean that, I'm going to rotate a Missouri guy or two on almost 100% of my lineup. So that's basically a core piece for you. These are just the guys that we think that are the four that are really going to produce at a very strong rate for you. So it's going to be a fun one, guys. It's going to be tough to get away from some of these cheap guards. Mm-hmm. That's why I like Padula, especially paying up at guard at least once.
Eric, anything to finish us off here?
So we joke about it throughout the course of the show that Jody and I are hand in hand driving off the edge of the mountain, leaving 10K salary. But as a reminder, anytime that there's a lot of value on the slate, anytime that there's a lot of guys that seem to be mispriced, a great way to get a different texture on your build overall is leaving a little bit of money, not 10K, right? But like you leave a couple $100 behind, and the likelihood that someone has a duplicate build is significantly lower. So keep that in mind, right? I know it can be tempting when there's someone that's $300 more and you got $400 or $500 sitting there. Just hold the line, stick to your guns, and if that lineup pops, you'll be in first place by yourself instead of splitting it with a few friends.
Spend that damn money, boo-boo. Do your thing, okay?
You can't bring it with you.
You spend that money, boo-boo. What are you doing with it?
Technically pay for that money.
Spend that money. We're just going to sit there? That's your money. Spend that money, okay? Nah, Eric makes a point. We got to get different sometimes. That's one way to do it. I don't know if I'm talking about 10K like Jody and Eric, but either way.
I mean, maybe if I had like a dozen tickets into the qualifier, I might leave a number with a comma out there, right? But look, dude, leave a little bit. You can thank us later.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Great show tonight, fellas. That's Mike Holland at MC Holland 34 on X. He's the captain of the Green Screens Media ship. Eric the Blue over here on the other side here, the Baron of Bread of Green Screens Media. Follow him on X. I'm sorry. Find him in those Twitter streets. Of course, at Fantasy Nav. I am Jay Heinrich, the conductor of the aforementioned Green Screens Media train at Dr. William Cannon. At The Real Napier for our guy Chris. At Get Green Screens on TikTok and X. And at One and Done CBB, we're coming at you hard and heavy. Prize picks, best bets, putting the videos out. We're dropping them like crazy. Our numbers are growing because of you. We appreciate you for hanging out with us, especially staying up late with us tonight. We'll be back on Sunday night for Monday's big slate. Tell somebody you love them. Take care of yourself, and let's get this bread, baby.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And And until the next visit, be well and take care.